v.h.s.x? What do you mean?
Alright everybody, welcome back. We're here for a match review for BrolyDZ. You've probably seen him around. Hell yeah, let's do it. So let's go ahead and pause real quick so we can break down the build real fast, just so you guys can get some more information. So we'll start with the perks. Iron Grass, Sloppy Butcher, Thrilling Tremors, and Dead Man Switch. Now I don't know what kind of perks you have access to, so we'll keep it. We'll try to keep it as basic as possible, right? So I would swap out Iron Grasp and probably Sloppy Butcher, because of the fact that not only is our ability making everybody exposed anyway, so it doesn't affect, doesn't really matter about health states. Them being healed is kind of irrelevant due to that fact, and also the Sloppy Butcher nerf is going to hurt us a lot, especially if we try to run Sloppy anymore with that 90-second duration. It's kind of irrelevant now. Now, the choices I would recommend, especially because they don't have to buy these characters, Hillbilly's Enduring, Trapper's Brutal Strength, those are great choices. We don't really have any, like, slowdown, per se anymore, due to the fact that, Stranger Things is, been added back in the game, so now it's a Demogorgon perk. So, depending on whatever, slowdown you want to run, if you want to get, like, Pinhead for Deadlock, Plague for Corrupt, those are also two great slowdowns to help you out. But otherwise, okay perks. Not amazing for Ghostface, especially because Deadman's requires you to kind of pressure the map from far away, which you kind of can't really get value from with a character that moves this slow. Getting into the add-ons real quick. Philly's a great choice. We already know that. Great choice. The headline cutouts is probably irrelevant, I would say. You would want to maybe, if you want to go with the same rarity, you can obviously go for the matchbook. It's the same rarity, but you won't have to, you'll actually get an effect which will reduce the cooldown by 6 seconds instead of getting a speed boost while you're stalking. So what it really just does is make you at walking speed while you stalk, which is mostly irrelevant considering you should be leaning instead of walking towards people stalking, because we're playing Ghostface and not, Michael Myers. So with that being said, definitely recommend the extra slowdowns and stuff like that if you can get your hands on it. Definitely check the Shrine of Secrets or whatever have you if you don't have access to the DLCs and you just want those perks. But with that being said, we'll get right into the mix. So getting into the gameplay. So first off, I'm gonna mention that you're crouching around the map, which is something I don't recommend, specifically because you're moving slower, right? And then on top of that, you're also not being able, you can't really see as much of where the survivors are, so you kind of have to guess a lot of the time, which already is not great. So you definitely want to break that habit. When it comes to stalking, you want to get as close as you can, because if Meg, say, had Sprint Burst, that mark would have basically been invalidated. She could have made main building, and it would have slowed you down heavily. If the Meg was more aware, it would have been a lot more difficult to get that down. Especially if they did see you stalking and they noticed that you're about to, if you were much closer, I would say, is going to reduce the margin for error, and it will reduce a lot of their ability to get away, because a lot of the time, you can get the instant down while they're still surprised they got marked, rather than mark it from across the map and letting them get away. Like I've said before, crouching around the map, you're really slowing yourself down. Not something you want to continue to keep doing. You want to break that habit. It's not something you want to make a usual thing, because crouching around the map is going to slow you down, and everyone still sees you. I want to also mention that. You're not hidden because you're crouched. Now you're going to see here that because you were crouching around the map, you didn't really know where she was. And because of that, you weren't able to actually get any stalking, which you could have been leaning off of the cars potentially to get some more stalking, and then now it extends the chase a lot longer than it probably could have. So there's a portion here, I'm going to slow it down. So you break the pallet on this side, which is correct. But then you decide to walk through the pallet, and then you just gave her an extra mile of distance. When if you had just gone to the left side, and then gone around that side, we would have cut off a little bit of extra distance. Now right here is perfect. You break the pallet on the right side, you push them right back into that area. But then you also gone for a swing from very far away when there was really no distance to be made there. You have to definitely keep that in mind. You'll get used to it with more experience, but you know, you kind of can eyeball it a little bit to get the right distance, but she was already making a fast vault and was through the window. So now we're trying to intercept the generator here, which is fine, but you're taking a lot of time to try to lean off of the walls and stuff like that. Now this Meg, as we know, wasn't very aware anyway, so that's already a given, and the Ada is kind of in the area for whatever reason. And I guess didn't notice her teammate went down, so that's fine, right? You made the right play, you downed her, you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna make sure I don't overextend here. And then you're picking up, which makes sense, you're gonna go for the hook. Now, I would have tried to find a hook that was much closer to that generator that is going, because I would have you would have been able to defend it a lot easier. Okay, so here's fine, you're doing quite well, you're mind gaming it, but you weren't ready for them to vault, which was, you know, which is the whole point of that mind game, to sidestep like that, is because you want them to go for a vault. So that was a bit of a fumble. Now here is fine, you're doing well, you're waiting it out, you know, you can just count it in your head up to 10, you're like, okay, cool, the endurance is done. Kind of overextended a little bit there. Kind of extended the chase just a bit, but you were at least able to get the Meg on the ground again, which is a great play. Immediately hooked him, but you know where the pressure is. Yep, she's out of the game. That's good. You got somebody out very early. And you're kind of like looking around. Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine. That's all right. That's all right. We're doing well. I would, yeah. Okay. Now here's I'm starting to notice something that you're trying to do here, which is this, hold on. So you're trying to, try to mind game while crouched. Now, this is not something that you really can do, as Ghostface. Because while you're crouched, you still have a red stain, and they can, obviously, like, the red stain is like a big red light that like covers everything and goes, like, it's a light essentially, so they can see where you're looking while you're crouched regardless. So that's not necessarily a play that you want to make a habit either. Now thankfully, because these survivors we're not really, I guess, prepared for that, you were at least able to get the down, but it would have been a lot sooner that you got the down if you had just went around the pallet normally. Now we see here you're kind of crouching on again. You're crouching while also cloaked, which, as I've said, I don't recommend. That was good. You were at least able to get rid of the pallet there. And you're trying to go for this like crouching into like an M1 play, but you got to keep in mind that the Ghostface doesn't necessarily have like an ability while he's crouched. Like his entire ability is to just crouch. So what you're doing, like especially right here, you're like crouching behind the car, which is not really like a threat to the survivors. So it's more of a mistake on the survivors' side that you were actually able to get the down here, because of the fact that they could have easily like left the loop or ran into the main building, but like while you were doing that, because while you're crouched, you're not really creating a threat. If you're playing Pig, that makes sense, right? You just like, you threaten by, you know, hitting ambush for a bit, seeing if they leave the loop, and then you could try again. But Pig doesn't, Ghostface doesn't have that. So, you need to, like, you can't really use that as a mind game. It's not really something that you can actively use, especially on like more like advanced like, you know, matches and stuff like that, because of the fact that like the Michaela just wasn't aware that she could leave the loop. I guess I wasn't really sure what was happening there. Now here was fine. You got the mark. Like I've said before, like you don't want to be like super far away. Now that's fine. Like that was a little bit strange. I would have just gotten rid of the pallet potentially, because it's connecting to another pallet in the garage, and that also connects to yet another pallet. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Now you ended up getting stunned there. That's completely fine. But you have to break that wall down in that main building. That's why, like, as you saw, like by vaulting through the window, you gave her a gigantic amount of distance. And this chase right here is to sort of show like why I always say you have to get close to distance and then mark, because now you're extending the chase even longer, and because you're not breaking any pallets, you can just vault and rotate around again and buy even more time, essentially making the mark pretty much useless. Now you're trying to do you're trying to use crouching as a mind game. It's not always the most effective thing in the world, especially because the survivors are in do have a third-person camera, so it's, you know, crouching around is not always the most important thing to focus on, especially when you start to get more advanced with this character. Now it seems like you at least got the at least you're kind of ready to expect anything, like you maybe like a spin around or anything like that. I can give you credit for that. That is great that you're at least aware of that. That is awesome. But I will also mention, you're at least getting some very solid thrilling tremors value. You're going to crouch in the shack, which you don't need to crouch in the shack because nobody's looking at you in there. But like I've said, like you need to just walk around with your ability, because keep in mind, like, you know, and right here too, right there, another opportunity to lean off of the wall, but because you were crouched and walking around, you weren't able to reach the wall, so you couldn't get the stock, and now you have to then two-hit Michaela now because you don't have her one-shot or even any stock at all. That's why I say just walk around, and then you can stock off of the surfaces, like the walls of the cars or some certain trees and stuff like that. Now we're back to this loop again, which is very, very, very difficult. Because I've noticed that like this pallet being there connects to that pallet in the garage, and then from the garage it also connects to the pallet in the store. So if the Michaela was more aware, she would have noticed that and would have been able to, while you were like just crouching and waiting behind the car, she could have just ran away and gained a lot more distance. But I guess out of fear, possibly, that's why she ended up getting downed. So you don't want to rely on that as a mind game, especially because it's very inconsistent, and it's not a strategy that you can like carry with you as you go higher in the ranks and you get more wins, because of the fact that Ghostface while crouched is not necessarily as threatening as, say, a pig while crouched, because she does have that ambush ability, and it does go around the tiles and stuff like that. But Ghostface doesn't have that, obviously. So I understand the idea they want to use the crouch, but it's not the most oppressive power. So from here I notice you're getting some very good stock, and this is the right thing right here. What you're doing is the correct thing to do. Obviously I wouldn't always be like crouching the entire way down the road, because now, as you can see, and because you're crouched, as you can see, you don't see where her pathing is really going, and then from there you end up getting a little bit lost, because even though there's scratch marks, if you were standing, you would have actually been able to see the path that they would have taken, so you wouldn't have to follow the scratch marks all the way, and find yourself kind of following more than chasing, because of the fact that you're losing track of them, and also while you're crouched, you're losing a lot of distance, because you're moving slower, and then because she's like running at full speed and you're moving at way less than that, you're losing distance, and then she's gaining a lot of extra distance, as well as the fact you're not able to see as much. And then you went to mark her, and notice she's across the map. So what does she get to do? She can now run even further across the map, like leaving you in the dust, right? Because now she can make to shack, and then from there can just run around again. And then remember, we're playing Ghostface, so we can't really we can't run any faster, we can't like teleport or anything, so it ends up slowing you down a lot more. And then now because you were not able to get that down on the Sable, the gen flies, and now we don't know where anyone is. So that's why I always recommend standing up, because then you can then see like where the perspective you're at on the screen. You can then see everybody who's walking around at a normal height than being crouched, because it makes it a lot harder to see, especially even with grass and all the high walls in the way. So you're doing a lot of guesswork as to try to find a survivor. Now, right here, you can also like listen in and so you don't really have to necessarily lean off of the wall unless you hear like the sounds of them repairing the generator. It does make a distinct sound, like it sounds like cranking and creaking and sparks and stuff like that. So it sounds very different than the usual pumping sound of the generator usually. So I would definitely keep an ear out for that, so that you can kind of know where anybody is, because you usually miss like a creaking, cranking, and sparking usually, is when they're on the generators. So right here, you probably could have been able to lean off of that car on your right side or the dumpster on your left, because you can see like the prompt will pop up here and there when you're against certain surfaces. So then you would be able to do that instead of having to crouch out in the open, because then you open up the opportunity to be instantaneously revealed, while also being able to not be able to use your power necessarily, and you already have to deal with a long cooldown without, say, Walleye's Matchbook, if you want to opt for that option, or a different add-on entirely. Now this is fine because you're able to at least get the down on the Ada, but it does make it a little bit more difficult for you, which we cut forward to where the Sable got downed, so that's good. And then we'll also jump in for the final takeaways. All right, so let's get into the main takeaways. So number one that I'm gonna mention, very important, you need to stop going around the map while crouched. Because keep in mind, we're playing a character like Ghostface that does not have mobility, so this is the number one important thing. Because being crouched walking across the whole map had literally cost you a bunch of distance throughout the match. And it's very important that you were, like, if you were able to stand up and be able to see the pathing that they would have taken, you might have been able to actually prevent them from being able to make certain plays, because if you had just seen it, but because we're so low to the ground, you're not able to see as much of the map, and then you have to kind of guess where they're going to go, especially when starting out, you're really not going to know exactly where they're going to go unless you have the experience. The second takeaway is marking from a distance. So you need to get a lot closer when you start marking people. It's very important. Ghostface, as I've said, does not have mobility. So by marking from across the map, you give them the opportunity to literally fly off and go to very strong areas like main building or shack. And remember that Ghostface also doesn't have a chase ability necessarily. You can't really rely on it. You have to use your knowledge and your footwork in order to get downs. It makes it a lot more difficult to do that. So, and then the third takeaway would be definitely try to update the build a little bit. Try to go for something for maybe cooldown, so you have more opportunity to use your power. Philly is a great choice, obviously, but the definitely the note, that, what is it called, the newspaper cutouts or whatever, is an add-on that you're never going to end up using. It's completely not going to assist you at all, compared to like maybe the cooldown recharge. Like the matchbook would be so much more effective for you, especially if you're trying to stay within like the brown rarities. You definitely want to stick with that one because it's always going to be useful, and it's a common, so you'll always get it back. In terms of perks, I obviously would recommend obviously getting other perks that are a little bit better for your playstyle. Definitely swap out Sloppy Butcher, especially because our power, like, you want to focus on getting more stalking in to make sure everyone's one shot, and Sloppy Butcher really just kind of doesn't really help you do that because they're just injured. That's fine and all, but you have an ability to expose no matter what health state. So if they're injured or healthy, you can still make them one hit. And then I guess you could throw in a fourth takeaway. The crouching to try to mind game is definitely something you don't want to continue to do. Because in situations like, especially against that Michaela, if they were aware that they had the entire like little corner there to work with, because it was main building and a pallet on the outside of it, if she was aware enough to at least be able to use that, the chase would have ended would have probably continued, and you probably would have lost a lot more generators. But with that being said, hopefully this video was helpful to you, for Broly, DZ, of course. And also for those of you who are watching this video, hopefully you maybe have learned something as well. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you want to see more match reviews, definitely join the Discord. You could try to submit your own, so you can also get some help with playing either any killer, especially Ghostface, but any killer at all. And feel free to become a member. We have exclusive content for those members and stuff like that. And with that being said, hopefully I'll see you in the next one.